Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to our Friday highlight video, which is going to be featuring one of the newer experimental ships, being the Tier IX Soviet experimental ship, the Vyazma. And essentially, if you're newer and you missed maybe the first impressions video of the ship, it's basically a Tier IX Borodino, except in a cruiser slot, with multiple different things, whether we want to talk about the fighter flight, funny button consumable, the fact that you get hydro, the fact that you get an engine boost, and the list goes on and on. So I don't want to talk so much about I'm trying to figure out how to word this. So basically what I want to do in this video is talk more about how to play the ship. We'll talk about characteristics, but more on the play. So I have been back and forth. I think Metz, I sometimes would run around without using the health at the start, mainly because Metz has a much better concealment. On Vyazma, I've had 2 games now where I have been absolutely wrecked at the start of the battle and died at the start. And I think it was this same night, maybe at when this battle took place, or it might have been the night after. So then anyhow, I kind of started just utilizing a heal at the start. Normally I say wait until you make first contact before you heal up. You know, I could have waited, made my shot, and then if I see incoming fire, then take the heal. But I was a little gun shy. The big thing, I think, like maybe with Moskva, let's say you start out in the middle. You know, Moskva and the Russian ships in general have such a large concealment. You should really work to move on the B or C line over. The ship does much better in fighting on a flank because you have an extremely vulnerable broadside. And so if you kind of push in, let's say to the DE line, then you decide I'm going to go broadside to get maybe more into the position I want. That's when I've been punished with Vyazma the most. Sometimes you have to hold your fire, stay dark a little longer until you get maybe on a flank or you're utilizing an island before you open up and give away your concealment. That is what I've learned has been quite helpful with the ship so far. So just be mindful. A kind of a defining part of Vyazma is the early part in terms of your positioning, because if you don't play well, you can absolutely get demolished when you're just trying to position and start the game. So try to work over on the BC line. Try to work a flank if possible. Use some island cover if you are fighting more in the middle of the map. Otherwise, what makes the ship really good is that she gets 3 406s. In terms of firepower, I mean, the Vyazma is better than the Metz, just because of the ability of what you're able to do and what you're able to get away with. So we're going to go toe-to-toe, me and Doom here in the Vyazmas, and we're going to duel both the Alaskas. So people are getting super aggressive, and I'm firing high explosive here, and I'm like, what the heck? When did I do that? I totally messed that up. So do be mindful of that. When you're switching between high explosive and armor piercing, sometimes it doesn't hurt to double check to make sure you've done it right. So we do take out Charles Martel. Unfortunately, we lost our destroyer here on the cap. But now I'm going to push in with Doom. It doesn't help that there's still a battleship over on, G2, right? So I do have to be mindful of that. But I'm going to go ahead and use a funny button here. And you can see the Alaska is relatively well angled, but we still do like 27k to him. So he takes a massive chunk. You only get a limited stockpile of these special armor-piercing shells, 60. And then you go to just normal armor-piercing shells. Part of what makes these shells really good is that you're getting improved shell dispersion, and you're actually increasing the shell velocity of these guns. And I'm like, can I overpin his bow? Maybe I can incapacitate a turret. You know, there was at like 18k. So I'm trying to do as much as I can to help Doom here. It might be now that he gets wrecked by the other Alaska because he goes broadside. You have an extremely vulnerable broadside. And I decided to back up here. And our CV ends up helping us out. So you may have seen me report CV early on. I do compliment him later on to make up for it. Normally I wait till the end, but I was frustrated with some of the CV sub players was having to deal with, I think, this evening when I was playing. So we do take out the Alaska. He does punch us pretty well. One of the big weaknesses of the Vyazma is you have a massive nose that can take a lot of damage. Like, if one of the things, you know, if they were going to make this ship even stronger, would be like to make the nose smaller or add more armor to it, because you just, yeah, that just happened. So it's like a 2 kills, 119,000 damage already. But one of your weaknesses is how large the nose is on this ship, especially when you're dealing with battleships firing at you from a distance, like let's say with 4 or 6s or greater, they'll just pin right through your nose and you'll take like 20k plus. And the biggest weakness for this ship, in my opinion, is like Colombo with the unique upgrade on the SAP. This ship doesn't handle semi-armor piercing really well, even to an extent like Japanese heavy cruiser, battlecruiser high explosive, or German battleships or cruisers with the quarter penetration on high explosive value. So those are really the weaknesses to these ships. So I kind of mentioned it recently that it's interesting to see how the Christopher Colombo is kind of becoming a good ship that can deal with, especially with the experimental ships, whether we're talking about Metz, Vyazma, or even Oregon, because the SAP just wrecks you. So that's kind of the kryptonite for these experimental ships, in addition to things like, I would say, submarines and definitely CVs that just want to focus you. Like a Malta can absolutely wreck your day. Hakuryu can absolutely wreck your day, like with the armor piercing, maybe even like a Richthofen. So just be aware. But you can see we're doing these big salvos. We're getting a lot of use out of our F key, out of the fighter flight. So one of the things that makes these ships really powerful is, we get another smoke here from the lovely CV player. But one of the things that really helps with the ships is like when you're able to take one, because this is basically a tier 9 battleship, you know, or Dino, because of the commander build, you know, you're taking Adrenaline Rush on top of already having the fighter flight that, like, as you lose hit points, your main battery reloads faster and its accuracy improves as your hit points decrease and you reach this minimum effective threshold, which I think was around 17k or something like that. So you have that on tied with Adrenaline Rush, so now you're getting even faster reload, and then you take something like the top grade gunner, one of the 4-point skills, reducing your reload by, was it 8%, I think, for cruisers. So you are really able to get a nasty reload with these 6 406s, right? So now I'm coming back up. I'm trying to help the battleship player here out. I'm going to go ahead and go for the bow. And then I was like, I didn't do that right. So that's one of the things you do have to be mindful. If you're not paying attention too well, you can definitely mess up on the F key. And now I'm afraid of taking torps from this side from Iwami, so I'm going to start backing up. We do have our hydroacoustic search going. And we get shot off, not before it gets the torps off, but because of that engine boost, we're going to be able to quickly back up and avoid the torpedoes altogether. I'm pretty sure we avoid. Yeah, it's like, I hope I didn't say that wrong. So without the engine boost, we wouldn't have been able to do that, right? So that's honestly quite busted, if you will. And again, like, you do have to be mindful of when you're utilizing the funny button to burst fire, because, you know, we almost died there and that was unnecessary, and it was just because of a misplay on my end. So basically with the F key, it's like if you utilize it smart, in paying attention, like, you can get a lot of value out of the F key. Like, we could have even gotten more value. Like, that would have been my 3rd kill in this game, as we have 157,000 damage in high caliber, and we've eaten through all of our heals. So the other thing here with Vyazma is that you have a 60-second cooldown on your repair party, which is great. 80-second would be probably much more difficult to play this ship, but 60-second makes it really helpful. Then you take November Foxtrot, you can drop it down to 57 seconds, right? But we've reloaded a high explosive. We want to really catch out the kid here if we can. And he goes outside of his smoke screen, and you can see how tight that dispersion is. First salvo, not so hot. Second salvo seems to be more accurate. I think several WoW's content creators have mentioned that, like, it's weird how the second salvo seems even more tighter in shell dispersion than the first salvo. I'm not sure why that really is, but hey, that's the way it is. And then, of course, you've got your hydroacoustic search. You know, So it'd be great to have the Hydro, but I don't really need a Hydro to tell me the kid's probably dumping torpedoes, so we're going to alter our course. He's not spotting us. We've got the F key clicked and ready to go. So that's sometimes you preemptively press the F key. That's when you can like, oh, I haven't pressed F key, then you cycle out of it. So that's kind of where I end up finding myself getting in trouble. So you see I just did it there again, and I was like, wait. Derp. And then picking up Dev Strike in the general offensive because kid does get a heal. So he can easily heal right back up. And we're using our engine boost, and we're getting right back into the battle. Now with 174,000 damage. So this ship, honestly, it's really good. It's much better than Metz. Metz, I think, is a bit more dependent on matchmaking. Like, you can go up against Tier 10 ships. You can go up against... you can have, a couple super ships, and you'll still be okay as long as you're mindful of your positioning. Just like the weaknesses of this ship, I would really say it comes down to her armor scheme, that you can be punished relatively well, especially with how big the nose is. Yeah, how big the nose is, how soft the armor scheme can be, and then your broadside is really vulnerable. You don't want to give broadside to heavy cruisers, battle cruisers, battleships. You'll absolutely be wrecked, and you'll regret it. So now, we don't have any heals left, so we're basically just trying to play like that. Dispersion's nasty, right? But did we lead enough? And not, because CVs move really fast for some reason in the game. But as we lose health, we don't have any heals. I mean, we're getting some pretty nasty dispersion. Like, I'm not able to kind of click and hover over to see, but the reduction is pretty great. So I have enjoyed playing the ship so far. I mean, I think I've only got 17 games with it in randoms. I think I have like 10 or plus in operations easily, and then some in co-op as well. But I have a 70% run rate so far in randoms, with a destruction ratio of 3.5, and because of my games I died early in, my average damage is 114,000. That it should easily be, for me, more 130 to 150,000. My most damage, my most damage in the ship is 227,000, and there's still much more I know I can push the ship out of. When you're dealing with ships like CVs, you have some battleships will focus your range. Like I had one game where there's a Christopher Colombo and a Montana firing at me from like 19 to 24 kilometers away. Having the engine boost and rocking back and forth if you're not moving helps. So really, whatever you do, try not to sit still. Even if you're sitting next to an island, just kind of rock back and forth. Because ultimately, you want to get within the Confederate Devastating Strike, Kraken Unleashed. But you want to get in that, 12 kilometer range is when the funny button becomes active with this ship. Oh, the minimum HP threshold on the ship looks like it's 10,000, unless they changed that from the article I'm looking at. Yeah, 12 kilometer when you activate the funny button. So that's literally general offensive. We got, I think it was, decoy mission, Confederate, strike team, Dev Strike, Dreadnought, Kraken Unleashed, High Caliber. And I've had a couple of big games like this. Like I said, I had another one that was over 220,000 damage. So it's quite comfortable to get over 150,000 damage, at least for me so far with the ship. I don't think it's a good addition to the game. I think it would be maybe if you like have a different game mode for these gimmick boats, because Wargaming's, in my opinion, Wargaming's running out of ideas, and they're introducing more gimmick boats. And yes, they've worded that these ships are only going to be around until the update 14.7, and then they're looking at including them into the game, because now we have the other experimental ships that are already in testing. I think there's 3 other new ships they've introduced. So I think they want to add more gimmicks. I mean, not that I think. I know they want to add more gimmick ships into the game, because they're running out of ideas of how to just present normal basic ships within the game, because you have so many different tech tree lines and nations that do different strengths, different weaknesses when you compare them side by side. But having, what I think they'll do is there'll be a whole other tech tree in the game that's just on experimental ships. It wouldn't surprise me if Wargaming goes down that road. But it's like when you put these type of ships in the hands of like really good players in the game, you absolutely can crap on a lot of the player base, in my opinion. So, like, you know, just having the gimmick burst fire on a battleship caliber gun, like 406 is what it's like. This is second interval, 1.7 second burst interval, something around that. Like, that's just crazy with 406s. So, like, even in that situation with the Alaskas, just because of having that burst fire with those 406s means that we can get away with a lot more than what we should be able to in that situation, where otherwise, if we did have the burst fire, it would be more even footing-ish, so to speak. But hey, that's what Wargaming's doing these days in their games, so oh well. So I'll do upgrade commander build video tomorrow on the ship to show you the build that I'm running. I'm running Kuznetsov. That's been very helpful in having his was it will to victory or something like that, or whatever, when you get close to dying. That's helped me a couple times, one of his talents, so I'll get into that as well. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. So if you do want to see more, if you subscribe, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to Patreon supporters. And until next time, take care.